sister, the captain of the ship, President Dr. Patricia C. Donahue. Give her another hand, please. Give her another. Of course, I want to salute my dear brother, Professor Dr. Jamal Eric Watson. When he calls, I come running. He called to Georgetown in the early 1990s, and we were able to meet there and engage in such high-quality conversation, and also give lectures just a few years ago at the Lincoln University. You called, and I came running it now here at this precious institution of higher learning. I tell you, Mercer County Community College, you all are blessed to have this brother, and when his book comes out, Black Politics, and Reverend Al Sharpton, it's going to be even more difficult to keep him, but I hope he decides to stay. Give him a hand. Give him a hand. See you tomorrow at the prison conference. Absolutely. Michelle Alexander and myself and a whole host of others will be talking about the prison industrial complex tomorrow at Princeton. I'm told that the seats are all taken, but if you show up, who knows? Who knows? But it's part of the kind of dialogue that is so very important in this section of the state, this section of New Jersey. Princeton University, Mercer County Community College are conversational partners. It's very important to accent because we're all on this quest for knowledge and truth, small t, small k, together. I want to acknowledge Dr. Guy Generals, who's Vice President for Academic Affairs. I want to thank him for being here. Dr. Robin Shore, I was blessed to meet, as well as his lovely wife. I want to acknowledge Dr. Diane Campbell, who is the Dean of Students, and we were just together just a few months ago at the Boys and Girls Club there in that precious chocolate slice of Trenton. Those priceless young brothers and sisters of all colors, but disproportionately chocolate, disproportionately black and brown. And she does a magnificent job on the board there, as well as the deanship here. I was blessed to meet the librarian, Pam Price, who was just so lovely. Similarly so with Dean Winston Maddox, who I want to acknowledge, and I see him all the time there at Nassau Street in Princeton. And there is a young president who I want to stand. Her name is President Ashley Minter from the James Kearney campus. Where is she? Where is she? There you go. It's a blessing to have you here. Jack Robbins, Dr. Jack Washington, who's my dear friend, has written histories of Trenton, especially Black Trenton, is here, and so many others. I won't go down the list, but I was telling my dear sister Mary Ann, who I'm blessed to work with and who I'm so very blessed to follow her instructions. I told her, I said, when I get a chance to come to Mercer County Community College, I want to say something that unsettles you. I want to say something that unnerves you, maybe even for a moment unhouses you. And I want to focus especially on the young people without excluding old schoolers like myself. Why is that so? Well, we're living in a new moment. Something has happened in Northern Africa and the Middle East. Just like in the early 1990s, the Southern Africans were teaching the world a democratic lesson under the able, courageous leadership of Nelson Mandela and a host of others. Right now in Tunisia and Egypt, in Libya, in Syria, in Yemen, in Bahrain, democratic lessons are being taught. You see, Brother West, what do you mean by democratic lessons? Well, democratic lessons are when those Sly Stone call everyday people straighten their backs up. They're going somewhere, because folk can't ride your back unless it's bent.
All right.
Or as Sly Stone would put it, the brother used to play organ in my church, Shiloh Baptist Church in Sacramento, California. Stand In the end, you still be you, one who's done all the things you set out to do. Stand, there's a midget standing tall, and the giant beside him about to fall. Stand, you've been sitting much too long. There's a permanent crease in your right and wrong. That's Sly Stone, 1970. 40 years later, the word's still relevant. I tell my young hip-hop brothers and sisters, are you singing songs such that 40 years later, the words will still be relevant? It's a challenge. So I want to begin on a Socratic note and talking about hope on the tightrope this evening. And I'm in no rush. We're going to take our time. We're going to have good question and answer. I'm here to learn, here to listen, but I'm also here to push, to challenge you. So let's turn to line 38A of Plato's Apology. The unexamined life is not worth living. That's what this institution is all about. What the Greeks call paideia, deep education. Yes, you want to dispense skills, no doubt, but deep education, mustering the courage to critically examine yourself, your society, and the world. And the Greek actually says the unexamined life is not a life for the human. We know our English word human derives from the Latin humando, which means what? Burying. We have humanities departments. What are they about? Dealing with the dead. Dealing with those who will be buried soon. Unless you're out for cremation. What does it really mean to be human? What does it mean to be a featherless, two-legged, linguistically conscious creature born between urine and feces? That's who we are. People ask me why I spend so much time in the studios with geniuses like George Clinton and Bootsy Collins. We actually have a new album coming out called The Funk Capital of the World with Bootsy Collins. Salutes to James Brown, Gary Snyder. It's part of Funkadelic. And there's a connection between Bootsy Collins and Socrates. Because we all emerge in the funk. Our mama's precious wounds. Put on my three-piece suit if I want to and act like I'm so big and bad. Princeton University, Harvard University, living in some deodorized villa called Princeton, New Jersey. But I know I am who I am because somebody loved me, somebody cared for me, somebody sacrificed for me, and the love push that got me out of my mama's womb. That was funky. A lot of blood, a little stink. But human, all too human. And that's true for you too. You are who you are because somebody loved you, somebody cared for you. What's going on here? The best of this college is what? Teachers, administrators, staff, focusing on the young people, or focusing on anybody who matriculates through this institution. Reinforcing self-confidence, reinforcing self-respect, and most importantly, unleashing mind, heart, and soul so that one can be courageous in examining who one is, because it takes courage. William Butler Yeats, probably the finest poet in the English language of the 20th century, our dear Irish brother. He used to say it takes more courage to examine the dark corners of their own soul than it does for a soldier to fight on the battlefield. Courage to think against the grain. And that's what paideia is all about. How do we convince students, not just the young, but students, to engage in that shift? Plato calls it a turning of the soul in line 518C in the Republic. The turning of the soul from what? The superficial to the substantial. The turning of the soul from the frivolous to the serious, bling bling, to let freedom ring. And it's going to hurt. Malcolm X used to say on 125th Street and 7th Avenue every night, the examined life is painful. That's just the flip side of Socrates. But the unexamined life is not worth living. The examined life is painful. And in the end, You lose your democracy if you don't have the courage to think critically. So you don't end up well-adjusted to injustice, well-adapted to indifference, conformist, complacent, and complicitous to the worst, rather than exploring with a sense of awe and wonder in the short time that you hear from womb to tomb. And that terrifying question, who are you really? Who are you going to be? What kind of legacy are you going to leave? What are they going to say about you when your body's in the coffin and you're no longer able to be part of the quick and the cloud of witnesses who breathe? How will you situate yourself in a story bigger than you that brings together the three dimensions of time, the past, the present, and the future? These are Socratic questions that everyone must answer, no matter what you major in, no matter what color, no matter what sexual orientation, no matter what religion or non-religion, no matter what gender. It's a human thing. It cuts all the way down. I tell my students at Princeton each and every semester when they enter my classroom, welcome to this space of paideia. You are here to learn how to die in order to learn how to live.
All right.
Because anytime you critically examine yourself, you're going to end up giving up some assumptions and presuppositions, giving up some doctrine and some dogma. And when you give up, well, James Brown would put it, give it up, turn it loose. That assumption and presupposition, that dogma, that prejudice, that prejudgment, it's a form of death. And there is no rebirth without death. There's no maturing without something dying. There's no growth, there's no development without you giving something up. When you graduate after those 2 magnificent years here, maybe it might take a little longer for some. I know you're working hard. You spent that. When you graduate, you know something's taking place inside of you to such a degree to which you have undergone some dying in order to live a life more critical, more compassionate, more decent. And I hope and pray every student who comes through this grand institution has those magnificent moments when you leave the classroom and you recognize, if only for an instant, that your worldview rests on pudding. Certain assumptions you held on, you no longer can. Shakespeare's Hamlet with all of those corpses at the end has pushed you against the wall, or you took Toni Morrison's Beloved and threw it against the wall because you can't understand how can love take the form of killing your precious baby because you don't want white supremacy to dirty that precious little baby up. It creates a kind of intellectual dizziness, a kind of existential vertigo. That's called education. That's called education. Pushed against the wall. Turn to Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis. Gregor Samson woke up from an uneasy dream and found himself transformed into a huge foul vermin. That's unsettling. Pushing you against the wall. Dealing with the catastrophic, the underside, the night side. And that's what Socratic energy is all about. Getting beneath all the deodorized stories. Like, for example, look at the history of the United States. Turn to the U.S. Constitution, no reference to the institution of slavery. You got 22% of the inhabitants of the 13 colonies. Enslaved Africans, their very labor produces the wealth which is a precondition for American democracy. No reference to the institution of slavery. They say, oh, Brother West, that's just an interesting kind of gap between ideal and practice. No, it's called hypocrisy, and then that's a deal.